Magandang araw mga ka-learners! Welcome to Solar Learning. Today, we are going to tackle a skill that's essential to our daily lives. It's something that will help us process information we gather from reading newspapers, magazines, books, and even online articles. We are going to talk about being a critical reader. Ang ibig sabihin ng critical ay mapanuri. As we read, we become well-informed and are challenged to think. Yes, we can be entertained as well. But when we start thinking about what we read, we grow and we develop. When we choose what has value to us, we start becoming more critical of what we read. Natututo tayong suriin o intindihin ng mabuti ang mga binabasa natin. In this lesson, we are going to learn some ways of getting the most out of your reading para masulit at magamit natin ang mga ating binabasa. We will help you develop the basic skills in critical reading, which will then help you become a more critical reader. After this module, you should be able to identify imperfect information in text you read. Use different critical reading strategies in solving problems, and evaluate the relevance and worth of ideas in reading materials. Let's get started. Have you ever read something you did not understand because the information was not complete? Maybe it was confusing or not relevant to the topic. Were you confused because the data presented was incorrect? Or were you bored from reading an article because it went into too much detail? If you did, you must have read materials with imperfect information. This lesson explores how you can detect imperfect information. After finishing this lesson, you will be able to describe different kinds of imperfect information, including inadequate or incomplete information, inaccurate or incorrect data present in a text, exaggerated and crowded details, and illogical presentation of information. You will also be able to identify conflicting information within the text. To start, carefully read the passage we will show on the screen. See if you can do what it tells you to do. This exercise is called waving hands by the lake. It is good for regulating breathing and maintaining the balance of blood pressure. It is also good for strengthening the function of the kidney, calming the nerves, and relieving knee pains. Do this exercise daily. After reading the passage, do you think you can do the exercise? Why or why not? What do you think is needed so you can do the exercise correctly? If you answered more information is needed for my last question, then you are right. This passage had imperfect information because it was incomplete. It lacked the step-by-step instructions needed to perform the exercise, waving hands by the lake. Remember, information should have complete data, details, and examples for people to clearly understand it. Look at the passage once more, but this time include this part after the last sentence. Here is how to perform waving hands by the lake. First, stand with your feet apart, hands down. Next, breathe slowly. Inhale the fresh air. Think about taking in the breeze by the lake. Then, gradually exhale. Take another slow breath, but this time, slowly raise your arms to chest level as you inhale. Bend your knees to lower your hips and exhale. Remember to breathe slowly, feeling the air going in and out of your lungs. Next, take a deep breath and slowly put your hands down to your side and return to your original position. Breathe slowly as you go back to your former position. How does this new passage compare to the first one? That's right. Combining this passage with the first one makes it easier to read, understand, and do because it has more information. Do you think you can perform waving hands by the lake now? We will show you the entire passage once more so you can try it out. Let's look at the following telephone conversation. Hello! Good morning. This is Miss Cruz from Company X Loans. May I speak to Mrs. De La Rosa, please? Yes, this is Mrs. De La Rosa. Mrs. De La Rosa, what's your birth date? January 10, 1977. Why? I'm sorry, Mrs. De La Rosa. Your application for a housing loan was disapproved. What? Why? Because the data in your application form is inaccurate. You wrote January 10, 2020 as your birth date. I'm sure you are not only 8 months old. Good heavens! I filled out the form with the wrong information. I must have been absent-minded. I'm sorry, Mrs. De La Rosa. Let's update the information on your application and have it go through the approval process once more. Thank you. Next time, I will read through the application form and fill it out correctly before submitting it. This is embarrassing. Goodbye, Miss Cruz. Do you remember why Mrs. De La Rosa's housing loan was not approved? That's right. She unintentionally wrote the wrong information when she applied for a housing loan. This means the information she supplied the housing loan provider was inaccurate. There's nothing wrong with being meticulous or overly careful whenever we fill out forms. We should always check and recheck any information being asked for and make sure to either provide or get the correct details. Now let's go through this short passage. When we got to the hospital, my nanay was jumpier than a Mexican jumping bean. But when we saw that Lola was awake, Nanay's face lit up like a light bulb. And when Lola hugged me, my heart lit up like a volcano ready to erupt. Based on what you read, were you able to understand the passage? If you said you could not understand the passage, it may be because it uses too many unnecessary words. These are words that make sentences harder to read because they exaggerate the information they give. They make it sound confusing. Passages that are written using simple words are often preferred. They are direct to the point and are easier to understand. Like this. When we got to the hospital, my nanay was worried. But when we saw that Lola was awake, Nanay smiled. And when Lola hugged me, my heart started beating faster. Read this passage and try to find out what the main idea is. When you do your reading, you need to answer the comprehension questions at the end of the passage. Then, get a dictionary and look for difficult words in the passage. Next, draw your conclusion based on your readings. Finally, read the passage. It was confusing, wasn't it? Were you able to get the main idea from what you have just read? This is an example of an illogical arrangement of details. It is considered imperfect because even though you have everything you need, it is not arranged in a way that is easy to understand. Here's how the passage should have looked. Now it is easier to understand. Another example of illogical information is when the passage contains conflicting details. Read this example with me. Anna is 3 years old. She was asked by her mother to go to the market to buy food and other groceries for the coming town fiesta. Can you identify the conflicting information in our example? What could the conflict be? In this instance, it's the fact that Anna cannot go to the market to buy food and groceries because she is only 3 years old. A 3-year-old girl is still too young to carry groceries to prepare for a town fiesta, much less handle the money to buy them. Unless there is additional information given, then what we just read is conflicting and therefore illogical. Now that you are aware of some examples of imperfect information, let's test your knowledge. Write the correct word or phrase on a sheet of paper for the following blanks. A critical reader understands that imperfect information happens because people have blank background knowledge. A critical reader is keen in identifying blank information. Imperfect information when it lacks blank. A critical reader checks and rechecks the information given and obtained so that he or she can identify any blank data. Critical readers can identify passages containing blank. He or she knows whether the passages have excessive detail or flowery words which stop the flow of thought. A critical reader can sort out information received and differentiate between relevant and blank information. A critical reader can therefore blank on the materials he or she wants to read for a particular purpose. A critical reader can sense any blank presentation of ideas or details in a passage. Compare your answers with the matching answer key for this lesson when you begin your LMS account. Congratulations on completing this lesson! Remember, imperfect information are information that are inadequate or incomplete, inaccurate, exaggerated, illogical, and conflicting. That's it for today's lesson, mga ka-learners! Tandaan, maaaring mapanood ulit itong lesson na ito sa ibang pagkakataon o di kaya maaaring mabasa din sa inyong online account. Laging tandaan, ALS tayo! See you again!